What up, YouTubers? It's your boy, the Visionary, and welcome to another episode of Firesidechats. Clockwork of the Mainframe. Another episode of this. What did I want to talk about? Oh, yes. It's sort of I guess you can call it a dive board from another video I did, on regards to the disposability of the male. And it has to do with the reciprocal aspect of that particular concept of what you've been seeing in terms of the trends, if you've been paying attention to what's going on in society. Where you see on TV shows where men are generally portrayed, and this in cartoons, movies, primetime television shows, where men are portrayed as boneheaded, overweight, fat, blustering idiots in some fashion or another, you know what I mean? And it's part of the shaped and engineered narrative of the public to get you to, disregard or marginalize the men in the world, period, for a very specific reason. And the other reciprocal part of this is the whole agenda to push or promote the female or women in society as leaders, as governors, and so on and so forth. And it's not all too surprising, given that there's a reason why they are trying to marginalize and basically demasculate the man in society, because a world that's run by females, it's easier to control, it's easier to dominate, given that the top 1% or the rulers themselves are a strong masculine presence, or they in themselves are men specifically. And there's a specific reason for this. Like if you are if you're a student of history, and you study like the far past, and you notice back in our 2, 3, 4,000 years ago, one of the main I would say protocols whenever one tribe or one nation or one group of barbaric savages attack another group who aren't like them, they generally, one of the first things they do is, once they take over a village or a town or a nation, they say, what do they say? Kill all the men. And the reason why for that is because the men are generally the more violent, the more aggressive, the more destructive ones, the ones who would stand up and fight back. And that's part of our nature in terms of our physical essence, because that's what we are. We are the masculine. We are the destructive driving force, for change and evolution and stuff like that. So, that was one of the tactics that was done back in the day. So if you move, come to present day, and you start to see how the shift is happening in society, where men are being marginalized, specifically, look at the TV shows, comic books, whatever it is in terms of media, or whatever has access to shaping the public narrative and consciousness of society, as it were, that's what you're starting to see. And then on the reciprocal side, what this video is really talking about is the massive push to promote females. You know what I mean? Like, if you look you look for a job, and women always get the job, like, period. Like, within 2 weeks, a woman or a female can get a job faster than a male can, and that's very strange in and of itself, because it's supposed to be a fair, equal employment opportunity and all that other stuff. You know what I mean? If you you go to fast food restaurants, you see mostly females. You go to department stores, retail, females. You go into corporate, females. You literally, all forms of the economy, it's being geared and promoted towards females. If you're going to college, if you want to get higher secondary education, you start to look at, the scholarships, and they're mostly geared for women. Women who are single mothers, who are going back to school, women who have been affected by abuse, or whatever the case or situation may be. There's so many scholarships and more opportunities for females than are for men, that it's something that's being driven on purpose, you know what I mean? Like, to the detriment of men in general, period. And this is a very important issue to talk about, because whenever such a shift happens or occurs, you have to take into account the actual mental or cognitive mentalities of the people that are involved in the shift. Because if you have men and women who generally, they operate and they interact based on a very set of schemas or roles that they play within society, and particularly, the old school roles, where men are generally thought to be the breadwinners, the breadwinners, the ones who went out, who got the job, they protected the family, they are the ones who, brought home the money. And the women were they were the ones who gave birth to the children. They were the teachers. They were the ones who held down the fort, period. They were the ones who, made sure that the home life was good, so the husband come back. He's the breadwinner. He brings back, the support of the family, and so forth. You get that idea. So we both interacted from that perspective, in the sense that a man is expected to get work, and he's expected to make money to support his family, to create, to build a safe environment for his family and his home, and so on and so forth. And the woman was not really truly expected to go out and work and to do all this snap, blah, blah, blah. But when you have that type of mindset where the women are starting to work and the men are being pushed out of the workforce, what do you think is going to happen when you have a bunch of men who are basically seen as not good catches, or lazy, or useless, or the general gist of it? They do not fit the standard ideology of what a woman is looking for in a man, who is successful, who has a job, and so on and so forth. And this concept affects minorities tenfold more so than it affects white people, because white people in general have a monopoly on resources and economics and finance and money in and of itself, based on their culture. But if you go into the minority community, it affects us even worse, because now, since we come from a more primitive, and I mean primitive in the sense that we tend, because of our experiences dealing with white people and what they've done to us, the ripple effects of bad things that happen with them multiply exponentially in our culture, because we're dealing with less resources, less energy to deal with the problems, and most of us are fucked up, or corrupted, or twisted, whatever the concept may be. But when you get to this particular plateau where the women are getting all the jobs, they're making all the money, and the men are not, measuring up to their standards of what they want in a male or a mate, that becomes a problem. Because why? Because A, they're not going to settle. B, they're either going to date outside the race, which is more or less unlikely, because they're expecting that unicorn of a black man to pop up out of nowhere. For every 10 or 20 successful black women, there's like 1 or 2 successful black men who's available for them. And what happens is that you'll get a rate where the black women will opt out of either getting married or settling down with someone, because that person is not up to their standards, and they won't have children, or they'll have a kid from some bum ass nigga and cut him out of the child's life, ergo perpetuating the cycle specifically. You know what I mean? And all that leads to is a decrease in the surplus population, period, because that affects how we interact with each other. That affects if we get married or not. That affects if we date, and so on and so forth, and decide to have a family. So when you apply that to the general society in and of itself, what happens is that you have a focused and pushed agenda where the culture is being engineered so that women are on top. Men are starting to get pushed out of the role of being a provider or the breadwinner for the family, and then the women, on top of that, not being told, listen, you are now effectively the breadwinner in and of itself. So what's going to happen is that you're going to have to change your role in what you expect of men, specifically because of the fact that there is agenda, there is a push to put you on top, and the men are getting pushed to the side. But their mindset and their mentality is not going to change to adapt to that new reality. So what you have now is you have basically a clash of perceptual paradigms, of mental paradigms, or cultural paradigms, where the ideology or perceptual paradigm of one age is conflicting with the new conceptual paradigms that the women are adopting and assimilating to the new age, and the men are almost pretty much powerless to stop it. You know what I mean? And it's like, unless those of us understand what's going on and we actually get to some place where we have some actual authority and power, this shift will start to occur. And what's going to happen is that we're going to get, basically weeded out of existence. There's a reality to that, because the women in and of themselves, they're the weakest sex. They're dumber. You know what I mean? They won't see it as, even though you have aspects of our culture or people who are aware of the collective, the survival of the collective, and there go the survival of the individual in the collective. But women individually, in regards to black culture, and I've said this in other videos, that black culture is inimical to our survival. It's destructive. It's inimical. It's backwards. It's savage. It's primitive, and people don't want to connect from that. And it's because of our loyalty to our connection to that culture, which in and of itself corrupts the women to the point where they're too dumb to realize what they're doing, that they're complicit in the destruction of both their race and themselves, and overall, and it's not just the women, it's the men too. But overall, the women are been given the reins of power and authority to lead the black community, and look at where we are at now. Period. You can't blame the men, because the men are actively, officially being weeded out. You know what I mean? Like when we go for a job and we don't get chosen for the jobs, what can we do? We have no authority. What type of authority do we have? We have no money. We have no land. We have no resources for us to have a say in anything. Period. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that's it. Thank you for watching or listening to the video. Stay tuned for the next one. Peace.